Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed we do. Guys, we are getting down to it. The midterms are now just days away. We have all kinds of new polls out of each of the states, also like overall national polls. We have one key voting group that Democrats have been counting on, moving sharply to the Republicans. So break all of that down for you and just go state by state at what the picture is. We also are going to break down Biden's big democracy speech last night.
Yes,
got a little bit of sound we can play. We can talk about all of that and whether we think it will make a difference or not. You can probably guess what we think. New revelations about exactly what Elon Musk plans to do with regards to Twitter and the business model. And also actually just this morning, I saw more officially that massive layoffs, about 50% of the workforce set to be cut there. So we'll break all of that down for you and whether we think it will work or not. New developments out of Ukraine. Russia is back into that grain deal. We'll see what that means. And also some interesting revelations about how close we may have come to the nuclear brink, whether temperatures have cooled at all because of some discussions between our officials and Russian officials. Some interesting intelligence there. And we also have some pretty rough stumbles. We got Biden twice here in the lineup. Some pretty rough stumbles in terms of his ability to articulate exactly what's going on now, what's gone on in the past. And interestingly enough, mainstream media taking notice, which is in some ways the most interesting part of this, because Biden's stumbles are certainly not new, but the fact that the New York Times is writing them up, that is new. So what does that mean? Saagar is asking whether we should have a pandemic amnesty. I'm looking at the Democrats' last gasp hope in terms of the midterms, and we have someone we've been trying to get on for a while, Stan Greenberg, who has been doing everything he can to try to persuade Democrats that they should be running on an economic message. New numbers indicate that, overwhelmingly their ads dollars went towards abortion and not towards any sort of affirmative economic message. So we're going to talk to him about all of that. But we do, before we jump into the midterms, want to tell you, next week, we are going to be doing a live midterms live stream.
7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Actually, no. I think it'll be daylight time there. Thank God. Anyway, so
oh, really?
Whatever. I don't know.
Is it change over the weekend? I'm winning.
God, great question.
Anyway.
So anyway, we're
7
idiots.
p.m. Eastern.
We will be live 7 p.m. Eastern, whenever that is, for everybody across the country. We'll be going. We've got Kyle, we've got Marshall, we've got Ryan, Emily. We'll be in and out. We've got great guests that are standing by. We also have people live on the scene. Thanks very much to our premium subscribers at Oz and Fetterman HQ, which we can go live to in the middle of whatever is sure to be a fun evening. We are going to have a premium benefit for our premium subscribers during that live stream. So if you do want to go ahead and sign up, the link is down in the description, but I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's gonna be great.
I'm psyched about it. And I mean, that results is genuinely uncertain.
I love election night.
Yeah, both of us, I think at this point really expect Republicans to have a pretty strong night. That's what the polling seems to indicate as we're about to get into, but you just never know. And the details of who does well and where and the big surprises, there's always something that's going to be completely unpredictable. So excited for that. And we should have a good crew in here in-house to break it all down. All right. That being said, let's get to the midterms. Wall Street Journal with some new polling with a really dire warning sign here for Democrats. White suburban women shifting sharply back to the Republican Party. Their headline is, white suburban women swing toward backing Republicans for Congress. Pretty straightforward. New Wall Street Journal poll shows key group of midterm voters favors the GOP now by 15 percentage points. All right, let me give you a little bit of the details here. This is a 27-point swing away from Democrats since just August. Wow. So back in August, and that was around the time frame there were some special elections. Those were going pretty well for Democrats. The polls were looking pretty good for Democrats. Fetterman had double-digit lead. All that was that time frame. Since then, 27-point swing among white suburban women. This is a voting group that Democrats relied on in 2018 when they did fairly well in the midterms. It's a voting group they heavily relied on for Biden to be able to win the White House in 2020. Most importantly, this is the voting group they really thought would be most swayed by the overturning of Roe versus Wade and would be most impacted by that and most interested in voting based sort of solely on that. The whole ad strategy of Democrats, which we're about to get into, which was heavily focused on abortion. This is really the group that they were sort of betting the farm on, that they would be really, really critical of that decision to overturn Roe versus Wade and would be basing their vote on it. That does not seem to be panning out. This group, like every other group, is concerned about the economy. And views of the economy among the group is are very, very negative. To be specific, and these are again numbers from this article, in August, 43% thought that the economy had entered a recession. Still not great, but today you now have 59% saying that the economy is headed in the wrong direction. So big shift there in terms of sentiment around the economy. That is a disaster. You also have them increasingly citing rising prices and the economy overall as their number one issue. You also, you get some insight into why they're feeling this way. There's been all this discussion about like, oh, the media is portraying the economy as so much worse than it is. And, they're convincing voters that things are bad as if people don't know what's going on in their own lives. And that's reflected here too. You've got 66% of white suburban women saying that rising costs are causing a major or minor financial strain. That is compared with 54% in August. So again, another number headed in the wrong direction where people are increasingly feeling the squeeze of high prices. And in an ominous warning sign for 2024, if that 2024 election were held today between Biden and Trump, 41% of white suburban women say they'd back Biden. 52% say they would back Trump. Back in August, those numbers were not just flipped, but Biden had an even larger lead than Trump enjoys now. 55% in August say they would be behind Biden, so a solid majority, and only 39% behind Trump. So this is a massive, massive warning sign for Democrats as they head down the stretch here.
White suburban women, just like the rest of us, it turns out. They're like, hey, I care a lot about abortion and democracy and all this stuff, but rising prices are
also
my
got to pay the
top
bills.
issue. I got to pay my bills. Gas is just too expensive. They even say, there's one woman who was quoted in the article, says, look, I agree with the Democrats on social issues, but right now, like, people are just spending way too much money in order to live. Shocker. I mean,
women are oftentimes the ones who are going to the grocery store,
yes,
who are seeing, the prices, who are like understanding what that means in terms of what they can put on the table for their families. So,
I mean, she, one
not
of
a
them
surprise.
is quoted right here. I eat Cheerios every morning. It's doubled in price. It impacting me personally. I came out with a few grocery bags and I just paid $120. I mean, I always like to think of universal experiences. Like, no matter how much money you have, whenever you check out the grocery store, you're like, oh my God, this is a lot more expensive than it was the last time. You can't help but notice. Same when you go to the gas pump. I mean, these are just things which are going to land empirically with everybody rather than trying to go and niche down. The 27-point swing is just a tremendous validation, is basically like a validation that the Democratic strategy has been a complete failure, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, if you're someone who believes in material politics, I guess it's proof positive.
Yes, I certainly think so, yeah. Which is that, you spent all this money on abortion messaging, on democracy, and increasingly, even amongst people who are sympathetic, you should remember, these people did not vote for Trump. They voted, well, I mean, in some cases, certainly, like it was closer to 50-50, but this is the coalition that delivered Nancy Pelosi her speakership in 2018. This is the coalition and the group more so than any, which is responsible for Joe Biden winning the presidency. So you should listen to them about what they care about.
Not only that, I mean, since 2016, who was it that was famously like, oh, for every like white working class voter we lose, we'll win 2 in the suburbs
I don't
or whatever.
remember. Yeah, I remember
the famous quote.
Yes.
And that has been the Democratic Party strategy. They're like, all right, well, we're bleeding white working class voters. And now, by the way, they're also bleeding like black and brown working class voters as well. But they're like, we'll go with the affluent suburbanites, college educated, white liberals. That'll be our base. And now you see even that strategy, when you don't have an economic message to back it up, ultimately when, the economy is overwhelming the number one concern, that ultimately looks to be failing as well. And, it's not like the Republicans have really advertised their economic strategy. It's not like they have a good plan. I broke down here how I think their economic plans, in fact, are a further disaster. They're talking about triggering a debt crisis, cutting Social Security, Medicare. All of that being said, when you are the party that is in power, if you just default that issue to the other side and you don't really talk about it, of course they're going to have better numbers on. And I mean, no one should be surprised that majority of voters say Republicans have a better plan because they're living in the economy right now with Democrats in control. And they're saying, this isn't working out for me. So in the absence of any kind of messaging about, hey, concretely, if you give us power again, here is exactly what we will do to help you out, in the same way that they did with the $2,000 checks. If you aren't offering that, then of course you're going to be hosed on these numbers. And I guess the other thing that we should say here is like, the history is difficult. The economic landscape is difficult. Only so much of that is in Biden and the Democrats' control. And maybe even if they engage in the sort of messaging that our guest today, Stan Greenberg, has been arguing for, saying, hey, we're going to re-up the child tax credit and we're going to pay for it by taxing the rich. Even if they did that, there's no guarantees that they would win the messaging on the economy. But because abortion and social issues are a factor, an important factor, if you just ate into the margin, that could actually be enough. I mean, Republicans gave Democrats every chance to succeed here, like talking about cutting Social Security, Medicare, talking about having a debt crisis, putting up candidates who are basically a freak show. They gave them every opportunity here to buck history and succeed, and Democrats are like, nah, we're just going to keep talking about democracy because that seems to really be working for us.
It's a structural flaw. The elites of the party are obsessed with democracy and with social issues. And, this is always the issue. Nobody's saying it's not important. But, for a lot of people, they have to weigh things with what exactly they have to pay at the pump, at the grocery store, mortgage, rent, tuition. I mean, you could go on forever about the prices that have gone up. And just generally, people think that the country is on the wrong track.
Yeah.
That is just, look, I keep coming back to the fundamentals, and I increasingly think that we are in for some upsets, possibly. I mean, we were looking at New Hampshire. New Hampshire is razor tight right now. And guess what? White suburban women, I hear a lot of white folks live in New Hampshire.
Republicans had basically abandoned their nominee there, Baldock or whatever, because he's kind of a fringe freak, and the more moderate candidate that they liked lost in the primary. Well, they're now flooding the zone with money because they see, whoa, we got a shot here.
Yes.
So it tells you the way that things have shifted and moved. We're going to get into that more in a minute. The other pushback that I get online, because I've been talking for a while about the fact that, where is the economic messaging? You have to be talking about the number one issue. You can't just see this terrain, is people say, they are talking about it. Here's Katie Porter saying something. Here's Elizabeth Warren saying something. Here's Biden saying something. But, follow the money here. And the reality is, in terms of what ads they are running and what messaging they are running with on the ground, it is overwhelmingly about abortion, and a tiny sliver is ultimately about the economy. Let's put this up on the screen. This is from the New York Times. They broke down the numbers. This is within a larger article. Basically, they say top Democrats question their party strategy as midterm worries grow. So some of this angst, I mean, some of this is also positioning Democrats trying to play the blame game in advance so that they can throw whoever their favorite villain is under the bus here when things don't go well in the midterms. But they break down the numbers. Democrats have spent about $320 million on ads focused on abortion. In terms of ads focused on the economy, they have spent a tenth of that, $31 million. So 10 times more on ads about abortion at a time when people are overwhelmingly telling you the economy is their number one issue. Yep. The Republicans have run many more ads on inflation and gas prices. And again, they have the luxury, since they're in the opposition now, of not really having to lay out that concrete plan. Now, it'd be better if they had a concrete plan that was going to help people rather than a concrete plan that's going to screw people over. But all they have to do is say, things aren't going well. Gas prices are high. Your budget is stretched. Prices going up and up and up. And that is sufficient when you are ultimately in the opposition. So, I mean, the numbers really bear out that Democrats put all of their eggs in the row your vote basket. And it doesn't seem to be working out.
Yeah, I think that's the least of what was said. I think that they will have to eat a lot of crow. Well, actually, no, I'm probably wrong, which is that because in general, what we see amongst Democratic elites, and this actually Republican elites too, all elites in the United States, they never really pay a price for their failures, right? You can literally spend billions of dollars, which is what these people are doing. And apparently the people who give it to them will just be like, better luck next time. Or like, the Republicans are still bad, so I'm gonna fork up that check next time around. I will personally never understand it. Like if I gave somebody $2,500 of my money and they spent it on something which backfired tremendously, or at the very least didn't do what they said they were going to do, why do you keep doing it?
I mean,
I don't get it.
They'll have their ready-made excuse. It's the voters' fault.
Yeah, that's right.
They need to care about democracy more.
Yeah.
They didn't care about the right things. They didn't vote on we told them democracy was at stake. It's their fault that they didn't show up ultimately and vote for us. We'll talk about this more in the next block of Biden's big democracy speech. But personally, if you really view this as like existential, that you win this election because of the fate of democracy is at stake or whatever, maybe you should be focusing on the issues that people are telling you they really care about in order to try to win that election. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.